Welcome back to Building a Fighter. My name is Dr. Austin Shane, sports chiropractor in Scottsdale, Arizona. With me, as always, badass strength coach in Denver, Colorado, Alex Friedman. Yeah, you pulled up the wrong side, dude.
Settle down.
He's rocking the new shirt. If you
It's a
don't
snake.
have one, check it out at buildingafighter.com. We have our new streetwear line out for the people to wear out, not just train in. So it's a sick ass shirt. We have probably 20 left, so get yours while we still have some. Anyways, outside of the promo, today we're going to be talking about a little bit of a freestyle, but also talking about the coaching journey. What goes into becoming a coach? We've talked about how to elevate yourself, but we've never talked about from the beginning what gets you into the dance. And then it'll be a little bit of a reflection on what we would have done differently. So, Alex, what got you into coaching? How did you get through the different phases? I guess, where'd you start?
Yeah, man. I don't think my story is like uncommon, or I don't think a lot of coaches go through this pathway, which is I had a really good mentor. I had a really good coach that, influenced me or inspired me or helped me become a little bit better on my journey and get closer to achieving my goals. And I felt as though I could be that guy for somebody else. Right. I think a lot of coaching is very like traditional in a sense of like it's passed on from generation to generation, from coach to athlete. And then as an athlete, you realize it's like, I can do that and I can provide a service back to people coming up and help them get to their dreams. So,
And that's good and bad.
yeah. There's absolutely some
Yeah.
poor traditional coaching methodologies out there. But overall, I think like almost everybody has that coach, right? That coach that has influenced them and giving them a framework or giving them a pathway to success and inspired them in some capacity, whether that's strictly athletic, whether that's, personal, whether that's like motivational or however you see that. But everybody has that person that was put in their life in a coaching capacity that like really inspired them to go be better and do more. And so as I was getting done with my kind of collegiate coaching career, it's like, I want to be like that. I want to be somebody that can give hope or help somebody get closer and closer to their dreams.
Yep. And with that, so that was the base message. What was the first step you took to get closer to your dreams?
Oh man. Yeah. So I guess it was just simply interning in the weight room, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Was that college or do you start anything in high school?
In high school. Yeah.
Okay.
So giving back to the high school, right? I was a collegiate athlete and, I came from a pretty rural town. So I was like probably one of 10, 15 collegiate athletes in my class or in, the recent history. And so when I came back for the summers, I was doing a summer job, living at home. And it was like, and you can help train the football team in the weight room. And that's what I did. Right. So I went in there, I coached a little bit, participated probably more than I coached, but there's a lesson in that and leading from example, and both kept me active, but also allowed me some insight into like leadership. And then, some of the actually best places I think you learn some of those things are like post-practice conversations. Like that's like one of the biggest places at like post-practice hangs or whatever. You're just sitting on the wall and you're having like in-depth conversation about like, what does training mean? Right. And so that was like a big insight into, could I coach? Like, is this something I want to do in the future, or is this not really for me? Which some people have that reaction too. It's like, I'll go back and start to try and help coach at a high school level. And it's like, man, I just want to work out. I don't want to,
Right.
lead. So I'm curious, did you ever go back and do anything at your high school, Austin?
I helped with wrestling here and there.
Yeah.
I didn't do a whole bunch. Technically, yes, I did. I went back and I advised, but I didn't really run sessions. They asked
Gotcha.
me. They asked me for programs. I mean, let's be honest here. So this is what happened. They asked me for
Yeah.
programs, but they didn't want to pay for it, and I'm like, I have I have bills to pay.
Yeah.
So then it was one of those things where I advised them, I helped them out a little bit, but I didn't have time to give them the services for free because I was working at the Chiro clinic, which is where like my kind of come up, right? And that's I want this to be kind of like reflection number one of things that we both did right, I would say.
Yeah.
And getting as much experience as you can as young as possible.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to say that, oh, you shouldn't start coaching until you know stuff. You shouldn't start coaching until you know, like until you're to a certain level.
Yeah.
It's the only way to find out if you're right or wrong is to try it.
Yeah.
And you might as well try it. Like for the most part, this is going to sound really bad, but like you can't really fuck up high schoolers. Like, there's so much testosterone flowing through a high schooler that I could literally just go like, "Ha," and just breathe, and they're going to
Yeah.
make gains as long as you have a weight in your hand, right?
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I mean, could you technically? Yeah, we're power cleaning 300 pounds and you blow a fucking disc, of course. But as long as you have a solid head on your shoulder, it, you're not going to fuck up a high schooler. There might be varying degrees of getting them to the best spot possible. You might not be the best spot for them, but you're not going to make them worse.
Yeah.
And same thing with like healthcare, right? For me, because I kind of want to talk about the healthcare side because it doesn't get talked about a whole bunch. I think everybody going into a manual therapy field, so PT, chiro, AT, massage therapy, whatever, you need to start, in my mind, in a strength and conditioning setting because you need to understand how the body functions so that that can help you with your treatments.
Yeah.
Right. One of the best things I ever did was become a strength coach first because it allows me to understand that there's certain demands of tissues. I can't do rehab. You get taught in fucking school that everybody gets the same 3x10 fucking external rotation of the shoulder joint.
Yeah.
I can't treat a 70-year-old lady the same I treat an MMA fighter in the top 5 in the UFC, right?
Yeah.
But you get taught that in school because you get taught to the generalities. You get taught to the media or the middle part of the bell curve.
Yeah.
But the only way to understand what happens on both extremes is to get as much experience as possible. And in my mind, the most fun and the most gains can be made at the extremes, not just right in the middle of the bell curve.
Yeah, and I think too. I think a couple things off of that, but it's a way lower risk environment,
Yep.
right? And I think that helps. I guess you ease into the more experiential side of strength and conditioning of human movement. Period. One I guess mistake that I made as we were doing this, as you talk about getting as much experience as early as you can, um, I mistook acquiring knowledge for gaining experience,
Yeah.
right? Which I think is a
Yeah.
super common mistake. It's like, what's the best programming? What's this biomechanically supposed to look like? X and Y technically, technical knowledge, right? And then you talk to your athletes, and it's like, well, based on our undulating periodization model, you need to be blah blah blah, and it's like your athlete doesn't give a fuck about
No,
that,
not at all. Yeah.
right? And so, as important as that stuff is, I think it's really important to get your like technical knowledge and your like programming correct, or you have to be good at that. That's like the X's and O's of the job. That's not necessarily the whole experience, right? When you're in the weight room, relate to athletes, have a little bit of like a charisma, right? Have an ability to create a conversation and then create meaning behind what you're doing, right? Because that's ultimately what we're trying to do as coaches. Get your athlete to value the work that they're putting in and appropriately see it within the context of whatever training paradigm that they're in.
Yeah.
And so that was a mistake that I made is I spent so much time being really hot and heavy in like the technical aspect, which don't get me wrong is necessary. I definitely needed to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but I let that bleed over into a lot of my like interpersonal exchanges with athletes, where I probably would have been better served to like get to know my athletes and care about them a little more on the personal side while I'm doing some of the coaching and technical stuff in the background. That's like, I think one of the few ingredients that like some people get out of the gate, but a lot of people like struggle with is like, I'm here to do the strength and conditioning job. I got to know the periodization, got to know the exercise technique, got to. It's like, no, there's a human in front of you. Let's like focus on the interpersonal relationship there.
Well, I believe, and I think most would believe that that's because of the way it's taught. Like we went through the same exercise science schooling, right?
Yeah.
Like, we had the same degree through undergrad, and we were at one of, I would say, probably one of the best exercise science schools in the country, if not just the Midwest. But that's what we're
Yeah.
known for, right?
Yep.
And even that was so focused on the technicalities of it has to be a perfect program. You don't get
Yeah.
much experience. You don't learn the interpersonal skills to talk through the athletes, and they don't teach you that that matters the same, if not more, to the athlete and to the people you're working with, because it's not just for athletes, right?
Yeah.
That the perfect program, even though there's never a perfect program, is. So, Alex, talk about a little bit, like, people don't know what it takes through school. What does schooling look like in undergrad to become a strength coach?
Oh
or
man.
like a performance coach is what I would consider us.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people underestimate like being in school, period. Like if you're ambitious and you have a goal, right? Like, and the way I kind of look at it is like all my experiences have added up to, where I'm at now or whatever. Like my collegiate wrestling experience is not just a wrestling experience. And yes, I was chasing kind of glory in that realm, but that was also my preamble and my lead into my job now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it matters a lot. So while you're going to full-time school, collegiate athlete was the starting experience. As soon as I was done collegiate athlete, I started interning in the weight room with strength and conditioning and having a part-time job as a personal trainer and going to school full-time. Right. So it's like, it's a ton of hours and a lot of those hours are free. I mean, again, it's not, and because I hate when like strength coaches get on their soapbox about this. Like, yes, you do a lot of free labor and it's a lot of like kind of bullshit that you have to do, like cleaning weight rooms or whatever. But like doctors, lawyers, whoever else, they go through that bullshit
Yeah,
too,
you
right?
got to get
You just
experience.
you have to work hard, but unpaid internships are huge, right? Like I know a lot of people find them inconvenient or whatever, but that's where you make your connections. That's how you get your in. That's where you get to see a bunch of different experiences. So, straight after college wrestling, unpaid internship, part-time job as a personal trainer, constantly hustling, still involved with the wrestling team. Then go to unpaid internship, graduate degree, as I'm doing my graduate degree, 4 more unpaid internships. After that, I finally get a job. Right, I get a job training a bunch of high schoolers, which is good. It's fine, not what I wanted to
Well,
do. So I ended up,
UFC was a paid internship, wasn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, UFC was a paid internship. Yeah, that was actually, I tell people this, that was the most like humanistic job I've had. 9 to 5, actually got paid, did some real work, right? And so that was an exception to the norm. That was pretty good circumstances. So I don't mean to hate on that. That was a pretty valuable experience as well. And then, yeah, so I'm like, again, you're front loading a lot of the like hours on the coaching floor for little return in lieu of a lot of experience.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and talk about a little bit. So that's all the experience, right? We've been talking about experience the whole time. What about the actual like in classroom? Like, what does that look like to become a strength coach? Like, what classes do we take?
Yeah, so I got really
And do you
lucky.
need a college degree to do it?
So this is like where the formalization of personal training I think is a catch 22. I like that we're becoming more professional as like a strength and conditioning profession, but like a requirement for the CSCS now is that you have a bachelor's degree in exercise science or some
I think it's just any bachelor's degree.
I was pretty sure they changed it to exercise
Oh, okay.
science.
That must have been the last couple of years. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I think excludes a lot of people. Like if you want that CSCS by your name,
Yep.
it's I think fairly important that you get a education in kinesiology, human performance,
Yep.
exercise science, whatever it is. Do I think those classroom experiences and some of those classes are 100% necessary? No. Right? Like we lucked out, right? We lucked out in a exercise science um program at UW La Crosse, which is really high level. And
We
then I
didn't
even
luck
lucked
out.
out.
We fucking picked it. I picked that school specifically for that.
I lucked out because I had no fucking clue what I wanted to do when I went to college. Um, but I had a professor, and his take on this, like, you have to take a lot of like general health and like public health classes or whatever. And he's like, if you can get the general population to train like athletes, they're going to be healthy. So I'm going to teach you how to train athletes.
Yep.
I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck yeah.
Was that
That's
G Dub or was that Matt?
Andre. Yeah, Matt Andre.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I spent essentially, 3 of my public health courses learning how to train athletes and like periodization and like straight up Olympic weightlifting programming, right? Which is a lot of the roots of what we do, but again, different population. So a lot of those classroom experiences, like your anatomy and physiology is like starting blocks, right? You
Mhm.
should know a lot of that stuff and kind of how, like, could I tell you how glycolysis works? Not anymore, right? In general. But could I tell you, practically what type of fuel we need to be loaded and ready to go for the next training session? Absolutely. Right. So it's like you have the framework of that stuff. And then that framework and the more you can retain from that will give you practical skills in your profession moving forward.
Right. I tell people like the formal education side of both of our jobs, the performance side and the healthcare side, like that's what gets you to the dance.
Yeah.
That's the things that if you don't get the formal education, you don't know what can go wrong.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what can go right. Like I like to equate it to the healthcare side of what I do. Every personal trainer thinks they can stretch somebody. Every personal trainer thinks they can use a hypervolt on somebody, but it only takes doing it over an injury or doing it on a calf that's double the size,
Yeah.
and you didn't recognize the DVT because you don't have the education to understand that. Like you don't know what the telltale signs are. It only takes doing that once to have a catastrophic meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
And the formal education is what gets you to understand what the red flags are. It teaches you what can go wrong and all the other shit, like what can go right. Like as far as like treatment stuff, talk about Cairo school. I might use two things I've learned at Western States for treatment. That's not why I went there. I went there to understand how to be a doctor, not necessarily how to adjust somebody. I can get
Yeah.
that from different certifications. I can get that from just practice. I can get that from putting more time in and the experience.
Yeah.
But if I don't understand how to differentially diagnose 10 different complaints in one area and figure out which one would be an emergent referral, which one would be they can wait a couple days, and which one that I can treat, I don't know how to do my job safely and effectively. And that's what that formal education is. The other
Yeah.
thing, well, go for it.
I was gonna say, I think with almost every profession, there's your like kind of two different like learning sources or rule sets, right? There's your textbook and kind of your academic learning and rule set, and then there's like your contextual on the ground learning and rule set, right? And especially true with strength and conditioning. But the more that you as a practitioner, as a young coach or somebody coming up can learn to blend the two and figure out where that sweet spot is, I think that is what's going to help you lead to success. Because like I said, early on, I was all textbook, all technical, all this is the information I need to know. And I was a little less of the contextual on the floor knowledge that I needed. Right. And so I think if you can see both of those and have like a framework for both of them, and then the really good high performers in the field are super good at melding the two together.
Yes. Yep. Like that's
Yep.
something that I have a guy I look up, buddy, his name's Brett Winchester. Like he teaches for DNS. That's
Yeah.
what he does so well. He could be talking to somebody about the scientific effects of a chiropractic adjustment and what it actually is doing at the neurologic level, and then equate that immediately into something that a regular person, a Gen Pop, can understand in the exact same terms. It's taking a complex topic and making it relatively basic, and that shows that mastery. But the
Right.
only way to get that mastery is to have the knowledge you get from the formal education.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to talk about formal education, this is a personal pet peeve of mine. This is something that I try to instill in everybody else. I was a weirdo when I graduated Cairo school. Normally you get your doctor, like I got my doctor and my master's at the same time. Woohoo. Everybody wants to have a fucking party. Everybody wants to do all these bullshit. That is the lowest barrier of entry. That literally is the starting point.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to make it like, oh, I did this thing. Now I don't ever have to learn ever again. That literally is the lowest level for you to be legally allowed to treat a patient. That isn't something to celebrate. That's something that gets you into the dance, and now you can figure out how you can go really, really, truly help people.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for like once you get your CSCS as a strength coach. Everybody gets their CSCS and they think they know everything. Dude, I didn't study for the fucking test. CSCS test is not that fucking hard. That doesn't mean you know everything. That literally gets you to the dance to be able to become great at what you do.
God, I forget what movie or what reference this is from, but it always sticks out in my head whenever I think about degrees and we have good degrees, we have the qualifications, we have the
100%.
certifications, whatever. But like I always think of this quote. It's like, I know people with none of that worth two of you.
Yep, 100%.
I
Yeah.
forget where that's from or whatever. But
Well, it's Eric. Like people can say what they want about Eric Cressy, but Eric Cressy he's a very knowledgeable individual.
yeah,
I know he's relatively polarizing in the community a little bit, but he's fucking good at his job. And the
Right.
thing about Eric Cressy, he teaches shoulder healthcare seminars, and he is a strength coach.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter at the end of the day what the degree is. That's the lowest barrier of entry to get to the dance.
Yeah.
Once you get there, you can figure out how the fuck you're going to dance. You're going to look like a dumbass with no rhythm, or are you going to put
Yeah.
some time in and look like go out there and fucking samba?
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny they say that. Which I think is another kind of turning point as we kind of phase away from like, okay, you're a coach in academia and you're trying to get the formal education. Like, what's some of the next steps in becoming a good coach, right? Like, because coach is this title that anybody can have, right?
Mm-hmm.
You put yourself in a weight room, you put yourself in on a wrestling mat, whatever. You're a coach. Like,
Well,
good job.
dude, pause for a second. That's my biggest pet peeve. Like that's why it's one of the most rewarding jobs in the world, but it's also
Right.
one of the most frustrating jobs in the world. It's just like how Christina talks about dietetics.
Yeah.
Everybody works out, so everybody thinks they know everything.
Amen.
And unfortunately, that leads to a relatively low barrier of entry because the bro that's doing steroids in fucking Gold's Gym thinks that his opinion matters the same as somebody with a doctorate in this field. But that being said, how do you get to the level where your opinion can speak over the other people? How can you get to the level where your opinion matters more and really shines through? And that comes from being able to understand the knowledge, being
Yeah.
able to apply the knowledge, and really dedicating yourself to what your craft is, which
Yeah.
isn't just knowledge, right? It's also experience. But if you can't really understand everything and dive fully deep and like what we're going to talk about, getting different certifications, putting more experience in, all these different things that the next phase of what we're talking about right here.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, you don't know how to, I guess, communicate your ideas in a way that aren't just calling somebody a dumbass, but trying to help them along the way. Because most of the time when they challenge you, you can't change opinions all the time, but a lot of the
Right.
times when you're talking about something specifically, there's a reason why they have that opinion. The only way to try to help in the situation, which I think if you have a professional degree, you should be trying to help as many people as possible, no matter how frustrating it is. The only way to try to help them is to explain it as basic as possible. The only way to explain it as basic as possible is to understand the concept and put the time in 100% to master that craft.
Well, and I think part of mastering that craft is what you're talking about. It's like the communication front. Like, and that's like, that was a place that I had a hard time. Like every gym bro
Mhm.
that wanted to talk to me, I was game. It's like, all right, let's fucking talk. And I was like, I think I know more than you. I'm going to like fight my case and argue. And it's like, I'm just arguing with a brick wall, right? They're set and they know what they know, right? This was the biggest thing. I would halfway mention, it's like, I have a nutrition minor, right? Or whatever. And
Yeah.
then everybody would unload on me. What's the best type of diet? What do they follow? And then like,
Carnivore, bro.
right. And it's like, it took me a long time to like kind of humble myself and be like, all right, that's going to be their opinion. Let that be that. And like, and I'll speak to what I know and try and do a good job communicating my point. But like at some point, like that's what they know and that's their thing. And that's like a hard um, wall to kind of overcome because like exactly what you said, they think they have the same opinion that you have. Right. And so there's a little humility that goes on with that. But then there's also like an accepting of, if that's what works for that person, they're going to swear by it. And that's like, that's what muddies the water. I think with a lot of this is like so much shit works. Right. It's
Right.
like,
I mean, dude, I made a video on the YouTube. There's no right answers. Once you get to a
yeah,
certain I mean, there's wrong answers. There
yeah,
definitely are fucking wrong answers. But once you get to a certain level, they're all just different shades of right. It
yeah,
just depends on the right circumstance for the right person. That being
yeah,
said, some of those gym bros could be thinking they're in the right, but they don't understand they're actually in the wrong because they don't see, because they don't have the formal education,
yeah.
all of the different red flags that could be accumulating. They don't view them as something that's a red flag.
Yeah, and like that's again part of the gray area. Part of the thing is like genetics is a cheat code, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like so many people have stupid good genetics that
100%.
like they just get away with shit you're not supposed to,
Right.
right?
Dude, like me with flexibility or mobility. Dude,
Yeah,
I could literally, I haven't stretched in 10 years. I can put the top of my palm on the fucking ground behind my
right.
heels. If I go and sell a mobility program, it's going to look great,
Yeah.
Guess what? It doesn't, it's a cheat code. I just have
Yeah.
flexy ass joints.
Yeah. Genetics is the cheat code. And then the other thing that I run into all the time is like, it's not a problem until it's a problem.
Yep.
And that's like, that's one of the hardest things to communicate to people that have success doing what they're doing.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
It's like,
Especially elite athletes.
yeah. And so those are some arguments that I think like we can get into, but I think it's more worthwhile just to like see from experience. That's why like we used to rag on experience all the time. And like I think there is an overplaying of experience that happens, but the more you see, the more you know. Right. I think there is a degree to that. And so that's why we talk about front loading this coaching experience. Like get into as many weight rooms as you can. And that was going to be my next point was don't just get into the weight rooms and be a fly on the wall, right? Like put yourself out there. Like high school coaching is the like best place to do this is just try shit out. You know how fucking scared and nervous I was to like talk to a team or like before the lift, bring everybody together and like give them a prep talk or a rally or like
Yeah.
when it's time to break down, like summarize the day and like and give some like coaching 2 cents. Like that was petrifying to me, right? Especially early on. But you know how you get over that is you just fucking send it. Like in a high school weight room, nobody cares, right? Don't, be super inappropriate or any shit like that. But like say what you think and then you can reflect and be like, oh, that was a dumb thing to say, or it's like, hey, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was, right? And then you get a little better at this like this public speaking skill set that is necessary for a coach.
Right. No, that's that being able to speak in front of groups is one of the hardest things to learn how to do as a coach and as a young professional. And the more experience you get at it, the better you'll be because you don't realize how much that translates to the rest of your life. Like there's a lot of different times, even if you're not a strength coach anymore, like you'll transition out of the field every once in a while, or maybe you'll do this, maybe you'll do that. Being able to speak in front of groups and have confidence in the way you're speaking and be self-assured, that is such an important skill. And I think going through becoming a strength coach is one of the best ways to do that. It's better than what those public speaking courses. It's better than paying money to go do that. Getting the experience of being a sport coach. Like I remember first time I was in Portland, Oregon when I started coaching at that gym while I was doing school.
Yeah.
I had a group of like 7 people and I don't really get nervous in front. Like I'm a show pony. I like speaking in front of people if you guys couldn't tell. But like I just remember I felt something in my stomach and I was like, "Oh, is this what butterflies are?" And I was like, I was trying to break down. I wanted to say something motivational, but I didn't know if it was going to land. And it didn't. It was fucking terrible. I tried to make a joke, didn't work. I don't remember what I said, but 0 laughs.
Yeah.
And the more I did it, the more I understood how to craft my words in the story to get the desired response I was looking for. And the only way to learn is more experience. The only way to get more experience is to put yourself out there and be okay to fail. And I feel like a lot of people, when they get into it, they're so afraid of failure that they don't even try. Where in reality, you gotta fucking go for it. Because what's the worst that can happen? Everybody stares at you and they laugh at you. Fuck, everybody's been laughed at one point in time. Like you're telling me you didn't get pantsed when you were in high school? Like get the fuck out of here. Like somebody
man.
got embarrassed at some point. So you might as well try it again because that's the worst thing that can happen.
Oh man. And there's been so many times that I've like embarrassed myself in front of the team, right? Like I remember one time at DU, again, I worked with every collegiate sport there was, and so that was hard to keep up, like which team is which culture and like what am I doing or whatever. But like I was doing a really good job with the lacrosse program, and like I kind of led the lift because the strength coach had to different responsibilities. He was treating, more injured athletes or giving them alternatives to the programs and then blah, blah, blah. So I ran the lift or whatever. And so at the end of the lift, I got all these kudos from the strength coach. It's like, Alex stepped up. He did a great job today, blah, blah, blah. Alex, you break it down. And we come in the middle and I broke it down on the hockey break instead of the lacrosse break.
Ooh.
And everybody kind of looked at me like, who the fuck is this guy? And I was like, God damn it. Sorry, guys. And then I redid it. And it's like, as silly as an experience as that is, it's like you realize that the world's not over. Right.
You're
like
never going to do it again.
Right. And absolutely, because that's a lot of shit that matters is like the team culture and like, are you here with us or are you doing a job for you? Right. Which is a huge kind of realization to have in your strength, in your like coaching journey, I think is a lot of times you are serving yourself. Right. I'm going to get my education. I'm going to get my experiences. I want to be a better strength coach. I need to gain these skills. Right? Which is a really important phase. I don't want to undermine that, but it has to come with the secondary motivation of I'm making myself as good as possible and as sharp as possible to serve others.
I would say that's the primary. Like, uh, I don't disagree with you, but I would say that's everything I've done was for the secondary effect, not the primary effect.
Right.
Like, if not many people want to go spend $1,100 on an FRC course for themselves,
Right.
they're going to go buy that course to help as many people as possible. What a lot of people do it to go make money and market yourselves, right? But really, it's at the end of the day, the number one thing is to go help more people, to be able to
Yeah.
mobilize more people, right? But you're 100% right. It's you need to be doing things and look through with not rose colored glasses, but like with a actual like good eye. What are these different systems that I think can benefit my athletes? Because there's certain things that benefit certain
Yeah.
demographics. If you're working with Gen Pop, you probably don't need to go full down the rabbit hole of PRI, right?
Yeah.
If you're working with MMA fighters, if you don't understand what a car is or like what mobility is or what breathing is, we'll even say, then you're doing your athletes a disservice. So then how do we then isolate how I can learn all these different skills that my formal education didn't teach me to then benefit the people in front of me the best I
Yeah.
can? And that I personally believe is one of the biggest tool sets you learn in like year 3 through 5,
Yeah.
whether you're any professional that's in the service industry working with people is all right, I found my demographic. I found out who I work well with and who I can help the most. How do I then go increase my knowledge set so that I can help those people the best I can and isolate who can teach me the best things? Because if you don't understand those things, if you go spend if I go and spend $1,500 on a DAC bar course, which is a chiropractic board of radiology, where I can read X-rays and MRIs better, how is that going to help the people in front of me
Yeah.
to get to the next level? It doesn't, because that's not my. It's not like I'm going to go read a bunch of MRIs in the back and that's how I'm making my money. I need to pick things that are going to help the people that I work with, and that's a very crucial skill in and of itself to understand.
Yeah. And I think that's a trick, like you said, once you get young in the profession or once you stay going, is like stay curious and continue to grow.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's where I see a lot of coaches like stagnate is like, all right, I know the thing, I'm gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're done learning now. And I'm not saying like you just need to go to these weekend seminars and learn the courses and whatever, but like you need to continually have that growth mindset. Like I can walk into a room, like going down to your gym, Austin, was a huge like treat for me because I got to see a different context of training, a different like prioritization and hierarchy of like what you did with your athletes. And like I can learn from that, right? I can learn from so many different contexts, even though I feel like I'm pretty good at my job. I can learn from anybody and doing anything.
Damn, I didn't learn shit from you.
That's fair. Yeah, I know. Well, because you're part of this ladder group that thinks they know everything.
No, I did learn stuff from you. Actually, it was really cool when I went up to Alex's at Landau. Like, I literally walked in and it was a concept that I wanted to bring back to my gym down here where like I walked in and they're doing a fucking talk. One of their new coaches doing a talk on Hawkins Dynamics force plates. And I'm like, oh, like having even they're all the same business, so it's a little bit different, but having like powwows like that only
Mm-hmm.
educates everybody around me. So it's a good way to build in this knowledge we're talking about, where
Mm-hmm.
one person goes and learns it formally and then they bring it back and they can talk about it with everybody. That's going to elevate everybody in the facility, which is a concept I like a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a really good like team building practice. And like I talk about environments, and this is a small little tangent, but like is your environment making you better or worse? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something to really chronically think about because it's not a small thing. Everybody kind of treats it as a small thing, but like is your environment a growth environment or is it stagnating you? Right. Like I can point to one area or one job specifically that I had that was probably the most growth experience and kind of the best environment that I've been, which is Unity Fitness in lacrosse. Like Jordan Rudolph is really good at his job and really good at developing other coaches, right? And so he puts a lot of time and effort into that. And I can genuinely tell you from 2 years, 2.5 years at that facility, I gained like almost 7.5 years of experience, right? Something like that, because not only was I coaching all the fucking time, like I had to practice my craft constantly, but then there's also this guy that's like invested in me super heavily and like wants me to be a really good coach. that's huge. So like dissecting your environment and saying, this is somewhere I want to go every day. And I know that I'm getting better, even though sometimes it's a struggle, right? Like nobody loves 5 a.m. sessions, or
Yeah.
nobody, feels great doing those long days or whatever. But like, is this somewhere that like I know is a positive setting for me and I look forward to going every day? Or I look forward to going 75% of the days, right? Like I think that's a really important analysis that you can do for your like your coaching environment. And then like you get better from that.
I agree. And also being able to understand when an environment is salvageable and not salvageable.
Right.
Because that does happen. Like you almost feel stuck sometimes. You feel like you can't get any further.
Yeah.
And I think I've said it on here before. I don't know, but like it's everybody's like, "Oh, what's your biggest fear?" Oh, and everybody thinks, "Oh, it's spiders. Oh, it's fucking heights." Mine is stagnation, and it always has been, and it always will be. I
Yeah.
don't like staying in the same spot. If I feel stuck, if I feel like I can't grow, I need to be able to move out of that. And that's a skill in and of itself of understanding when you get stuck. Understanding when, all right, can I lift this group around me up, or do I need to jump ship? Because everybody, like, loyalty is super important. I think
Mm-hmm.
loyalty is one of the biggest value, like one of the biggest assets you can have or characteristics you can have. But blind loyalty is stupidity.
Yeah. There's loyalty to a fault for sure.
Exactly. And being able to isolate whether you're being loyal in a good way or being loyal and it's actually hurting you, and harming your athletes are two separate things. Or not even just athletes, just anybody, right?
Yeah.
This applies for healthcare professionals. Like a lot of chiros, super normal thing in chiropractic, right? You get out of school and chiros eat their own. So what that means is you get hired as an independent contractor. You guys do fee splitting, which typically actually is a fucking illegal. And they, because it's healthcare, you technically can't fee split, which means that if you bring in a patient, the doctor gets, or the clinic gets 70, doctor gets 30, which is a normal pay split. I know that sounds fucking nuts. I think it is, but it is. And then you get stuck there, and then you start making enough money to support yourself. But then you realize, all right, if it's a 30-70 split and I'm making, I don't know, the goal for every healthcare professional leaving school is 3 years out, you make six figures. So say you make six figures, you hit 100K in your third year. If you're at a 30-70 split, that means that clinic just made $215,000 off of you.
Mm-hmm.
That don't make no sense. So you understand that, is loyalty helping me or harming me in the long run right here? Well, that type of loyalty is actually harming you in the long run
Yeah.
because it's blind loyalty. So then you got to figure out, oh, I either need to negotiate what's going on or I need to start my own thing or whatever, unless you're okay with that. But to me, that seems predatory, not loyalty. And that's something that coaches understand, or that I know strength coaches run into, because that's a very common structure in strength conditioning.
Right.
Healthcare, it's an extremely common structure. And being able to isolate when a situation isn't helping you versus it's harming you and where you get stuck is a skill in and of itself that every coach and healthcare professional needs to get.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think like as humans, we have so many different like pitfalls that I think we fall into. And one of them is that like loyalty pitfall. But then another one is almost like this like willing blindness type of pitfall is like, no, this is a good situation. I decided that 4 years ago. And so it's got to be a good situation. Like, and I refuse to look stupid and say it's a bad decision now. But it's like you are more than free and like I even encouraged to like change your opinion on things when new information comes to light. Right. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the harder things that we do as professionals, because the way I frame it is like, yes, we have to have this growth mindset and I can get better from anybody. I can learn, but you have to do that critically, right? To your point, is this a great setting for me? Is this what's genuinely best for my athletes? Is like be critical on the knowledge that you're pursuing or the analysis that you're doing, whether it's in your own personal practice or whether it's for your athletes or whatever your motivation is. Like, I don't know. I'm not even aware of like bad strength and conditioning certifications, but like I'm not going to go just get a certification to have one, right? Like that doesn't benefit my athletes, right? It's like if I Google strength and conditioning certifications this weekend, the top thing that pops up, if I sign up for that, it's not benefiting my athletes, right? You have to be critical in these things that you're going forward with, and then like continue to reevaluate and put yourself in a better. And that's like that's the growing, but through a really critical lens of, is this the next best move for me? Right. Which is, the game of life. That's a hard decision to make, but it's what separates, people that stagnate or get settled down, or, for lack of a better term, settle, versus people that continue to evolve.
100%. And honestly, that's kind of where like I want to leave this off. It's like that's the main goal, is understand that it's not enough to just be there. It's not enough just to be a strength coach. It's not enough just to get to the dance. You
Right.
have to continually progress. Otherwise, you're going to get left in the dust. But it needs to be critically appraised progression, right? It needs
Mm-hmm.
to be things that actually are going to benefit you, because taking everything does nothing. Taking isolated focus in something does everything. And that's how you really help the people in front of you. And at the end of the day, helping people in front of you, it helps you because it increases your financial situation. Because the better you are, the more you help people, the more people come to you.
Yep.
So, as always, this is Dr. Ross and Shane,
Alex Friedman.
and we are out.